We're at the first stage of that. It's a tester. We're going to see how we get on.
We got to that point. We got the guy in, and somebody went wrong somewhere, and he wants to talk to
It's like a bomb went off.
Testing audio, make sure the audio is on.
Also, if you want to remove this, it will take 2 or 3 weeks.
Very, very
It's one of those things you've got to take the chance.
We'll see what happens. I don't know enough.
No, I didn't hear new fast.
So we'll tell you in a couple of months how that's going.
You're in the other
Based on average company. Merchant do a chance to read for years ago. I was in the chemical industry, really understand how that person made that product. She did. Get around and get around. So go to that chemical opportunity is like somewhere between 5 and 20% of it is oil. Basically,
yeah, that's a nice idea.
I'm going to keep breaks to the site type of orientation.
Oh, well, you want to do that.
I've got a new term for it. Freudians.
Come on to the networks.
And is this the microphone, this one? That one, yeah?
So there's a plaster on the floor. If you stand on the floor, stand on the plaster.
Right, then you can be heard okay from there. Yeah?
I think, you know, it's fair because
Do you deal with the development firms? Do you have any contact with any of the?
no, we don't directly with Jason.
Who's on first name?
Design.
Staff. Staff then, Toby, then you.
Me?
Yep.
We went with that.
Do you want staff then yourself, Toby, then Rob? Do you want questions at the end?
One of our software testers worked in the visual industry. He worked for one of the school very from so he's a great visual person, that's worked with cameras, he's going to go to business with his girlfriend.
We can do initial questions. That's right, and then round it up again. At some point you just have to go.
Oh yeah, it's all been rebranded, it's all to do with new logo. Whole thing. We got the grant for it, and the grant said it would take 6 months.
Whole menu system. Yeah, one thing developers think are waiting like 20 years now. Because they need it.
Fortunately, more and more we're working with large clients. Because we retain the clients, they can't. So you have conversations, you get an early view of what's happening. And that way,
Do you know who this is? Is that
I think so. And people come to you to just
go home with a long match?
It's getting good feedback.
because we're going to run software here's the time. And it was written 8,000 times.
Yeah.
From start to finish.
No
No modules, no real. So, you know, you change line 3, something like 10,000.
It's very difficult. Some people say
did you actually pay for this? It's something that somebody, you know, someone in the bedroom would just say, just don't try and modify it. We have rules. No more than one function in the line. Yes, the rules we use to make it all manageable.
Do you know who we've got online yet?
We won't. We know there's 5 people on.
It's worth doing, but what kind of sort are we going to take?
see him going.
We're thinking of creating where we bring in juniors and get them to work on legacy code. Part of this
Shows.
is good for them. So it's part of this training process.
Yeah, it's picked up a lot of that.
Then where's the
a bit of a learning curve.
Rob, if I ask people to introduce themselves, I know I've got a microphone and like, oh, just quickly rinse it. So it's just whether it's useful to someone in the room. What do you reckon? Should I not? What
I think it means that when the live streams are like they can't get that on the other side.
None of it's always easier when you know.
Who do you think made that?
What was the hashtag you using, sorry?
hashtag Corns, capital C-O-R-N, D-M-G, capital.
Capital C-O-R-N.
Guys, can you grab a seat, please? We're going to start in a minute. Probably sit near the front.
Is that where you are?
And everyone can see that. Ready, Rob? Okay, hi everyone. Well, thanks very much for coming to the second Digital Marketing Developments event of 2014. Just a couple of things I want to say just to sort of kick things off and set the scene. This is the second one of these events we've done this year. We did 3 last year. And the purpose really is to help everyone who is serious in a marketing or digital marketing role within Cornwall and wider afield to keep up to date with latest developments in the industry. And over the time we aim to have a range of different speakers both from within companies in Cornwall so that you can learn about the other services and suppliers that are around to collaborate with. But we're also hoping to sort of expand the breadth and quality of the group so that we can bring in speakers from further afield that everyone would see to be of benefit. Many of you might have noticed that we've changed the format slightly, and we're grateful to the guys here at Merchant House tonight who've got a really good connection so that we can make the quality of the online broadcast better. So for those of you watching online, we hope it's going to be a really good quality tonight, and we'd appreciate feedback on that. That also means that we're able to get more and more people joining online that might not be able to come out to an early evening event like this, so people with family or care responsibilities as well. A couple of other housekeeping things before I introduce our speakers. We're going to do one of the things that's come back in the feedback from previous events is that people would like to know who else is in the room because you might not all know each other. So we're going to do a quick round table introductions in a minute because we can and because there's not too many people here tonight. So obviously the people online won't be able to hear that well, but if you bear with us just for a couple of minutes, it'll just allow the people that are here to know who else is here, and you can talk to people that might be of interest at the end after the formal presentations are finished. The second thing is that we've decided not to make a mandatory charge for these events. That didn't go down well at all last time, and it added an extra barrier for attendance. But we would appreciate any sort of voluntary contributions just to help us cover the costs of the room, because everybody that is involved in organising these events sort of give up their time to do it, as well as all of our speakers that are involved. So if we could support the group running, and any surplus that we have will go towards future events, either for room hire or with a view to getting quality speakers in that people all want to have involved in these. So that's all from me. I'll just quickly introduce our speakers for tonight. First of all, we have Stafford Sumner from Jurang, who's going to be talking about joined up digital marketing campaigns and how to create powerful campaigns that are cross-channel. We've then got Toby Parkins from UK NetWeb, who's going to talk about a different sort of way of thinking about web development, really, in sort of doing it on an agile, ongoing way. Then we've got Rob Edlin, who of course will do his normal Google update slot, but also is going to talk about some new technology that's out, and he's also brought along Google Glass, so there'll be a chance for some people here to try that later if you'd like to. Okay, so without further ado, if we can do the quick round the table and just introduce everyone. Obviously, I've just introduced Stafford and Toby, so you all know these guys. If we could go to Paul next, and then just work our way around this way.
Hi,
Thank you.
I'm Paul Axton from Buzz Interactive, and we make apps, games, and data-driven websites.
Andrew Leon Walker from Ray Marketing, B2B marketing consultancy.
James Wylam, currently with Hotel Perfect, building online booking engines.
Andrea Evelyn from Nudix Online Marketing.
I'm Jamie Tamble from Finder on the Internet. I mainly make and run Google AdWords campaigns.
Rory from Envado, we build and maintain websites for our clients.
Dick, that's for Design and Print, digital print company.
Richard Collett, WordPress developer.
Dix Reilly from Reeve Digital Marketing, that's what it says on the tin.
Liz Brooks, Product Management and Marketing Consultant.
Steve Forth, Blueprint Software, we do embedded software.
Claire Skulls, we're from Marvel Toys, we're a children's toy importer and distributor.
Dan Henschliff, Insight Digital, we're a e-commerce development agency.
Great, thanks. And Rob, do we know who's watching online? Did anyone reply to me?
We've got Tom Grant and Anna Penrose and Sam Taylor.
Okay, so Tom Grant, Anna Penrose and Sam Taylor watching online. Okay, great. Thanks. So if I can hand over to staff then. Kick us off. Thank you.
Have you got any
Sorry, just one more thing, guys. For those watching online, you can either ask questions through comments on YouTube, or the hashtag for this evening is uppercase C corn and then DMG in capitals as well. So it's corn DMG. Thanks.
Great, thank you very much. Everyone all right with the AV? We all good? Excellent. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me along again. I know it's been a little while since I've been along to speak with you. Emma has asked me specifically to look at joined up marketing, online joined up marketing channels, and very specifically I'm going to be talking about today about online lead generation using digital channels and also marketing automation. So covering something for B2B and covering something for B2C. I'm going to keep it short and sweet, and I will take questions at the end. Anyone who knows us as Durang, we've got 11 years worth experience of digital marketing, very much came from a B2B world, so experience of bringing together channels and making them work to deliver results is at the heart of everything we do. In terms of where we started as an email marketing agency only, and we're very much looking at how we utilise the email channel to drive revenues and sales results for our clients. Over the years, as we all know, in particular in the last 2 or 3 years, there's been a greater convergence of different online channels where your search marketing, your email marketing, your content creation, all coming together to work a lot smarter and a lot harder. They were often operating in silos, with marketing managers having to manage multiple agencies or multiple people with different disciplines. Where we go with marketing now, it's not even just looking at the online channels, it's looking at marketing channels as a whole and how they can all work together for the best result for the clients. So it's looking at which levers we pull to deliver results, whether that's web development, email marketing, paid search, organic search, social media content, elements of international marketing against domestic marketing, whether we're looking at B2B or B2C. And I'm very, very confident that every digital marketer in this room will agree with me that not one single channel is better than another digital channel. They all have their own place, and some have more importance to certain businesses and certain sectors than others. And this is, I'm going to show you 2 examples of where we utilise this. One of the other elements Emma asked me to touch on is also utilisation of CRM systems. Now, a CRM system, customer relationship management system, very prolific within the B2B world. but we also may know it in the business to consumer world under e-commerce management systems, but also within hotel industry, property management systems. They're all very much the same things about the management of data and the utilisation of that for your digital marketing channels. This is very much a B2B example that I'm going to run through here to show you how different digital channels are utilised within the B2B world. And we're looking at B2B, we're often looking at driving appointments and driving brand awareness. We're very much looking at getting a salesperson in front of a decision maker with the view to starting the sales cycle. Usually we're talking about big ticket items where when we're not going to put our credit card into the internet and buy a forklift truck on a Friday night we're having a glass of wine. We're very much looking at having an ongoing sales dialogue with the decision maker. So we start off at the top here with a database. It may be one that we have grown over the years through telemarketing or for offline marketing communications through event management, for example, or for events that we run, exhibitions. That's loaded into our CRM system, examples of which could be something like Salesforce.com, which is quite a well-known CRM system. There are many open source ones out there as well, such as Sugar CRM. This one way we use it is we send very targeted emails out to a particular segment. So let's say, for example, we're working with a workforce management software company, and they can operate within the hotelier industry, they could work within the health and well-being sector, they could work within the healthcare sector, sending very, very specific targeted messages to different elements of the database, those who are involved in healthcare and nursing, those who are involved in gyms, health clubs and well-being, and those people who are involved in hotels and leisure. We talk in their language, utilising content that is very specific to their needs and very specific to their decision making. To contacts that we know and we've identified in those sectors, we may be using imagery and landing pages that are very relevant to them. The idea is that we're driving them through to landing page. What we want to do is we want to see them A, open that email, but B, we want to get them onto the landing pages where they're going to find out more information. In there, we want them to do something with that. They're getting onto that landing page that's very specific about workforce management software within the healthcare industry. We are potentially giving them the opportunity to download a free ebook, for example, or watch a recorded video about the topic that's very relevant to them. But our tariff to entry on that would be some kind of data collection so we can qualify them in some way. We tend to ask for the email address again, because it could be some people are coming in from elsewhere through paid search or through social media posting, just to make sure we can tie them back to the CRM system. We use the email address as the unique identifier. But we may ask qualifying questions. So our workforce management client might say we're only interested in dealing with healthcare clients who employ between 250 and 1,000 people and are based within the UK. So we may have 3 drop-down boxes, keep it very, very easy. What country are you located in? What employment bracket do you operate in? And what is your email address? Okay. What sector do you operate in? Very, very quick drop-downs. In return for putting in that email address, they get emailed straight away a free ebook that you've produced, a video that they can look at, for example. What happens there is several things happen. One, if they ask a criteria question that says, we know that we only want them to have between 200 and 1,000 people, and they say we've got 40 people in our business, they will get the ebook and they may get a follow-up email that's not necessarily orientated about driving them to an appointment. It's something to keep them in the loop, keeping them in the holding pattern, because it's not necessarily something we want to divert our sales team to. If they say we have 1,200 people or we have 900 people with something within our sweet spot, they might get a different email going out that's very much orientated towards driving them to an appointment. The call to action on there is book your free appointments, book your one-to-one demonstration, whatever it happens to be. Either way, we've got them onto that landing page and we've got them answering a question. As soon as they hit that landing page, we're triggering a remarketing ad, which is part of the Google Display Network. So even if they disappear off that landing page and go somewhere else, what we're doing is we're following them around the web, going about their daily business with our brand awareness about who we are, selling our workforce management software. So they get put into this loop here. They're getting these automated emails coming out. So they're getting emails here, driving through to different landing pages depending on which trigger they've pulled on our qualification process. And again, they go through to different landing pages and get put back into that remarketing loop. What's happening here is when they have submitted their data to us, they also triggers for us in our business development program what we call prospect scoring. So we will give a higher score to somebody who has filled out a form and has opted to download something, to share some of their personally identifiable information with us, to get some content from us. We prioritise those as somebody that we should be keeping an eye on for our business development process for B2B. So they're the kind of people that we will also be following up with offline telephone calls or offline direct mail pieces, very targeted direct mail pieces that may be a higher cost value to the DM, the direct mail, that we're not sending out en masse, we're sending it out just to people who are interested. We may also be looking at people who have clicked on a link, they've come through to the email, they've got the email, they've come through to the landing page but haven't necessarily followed through with the download of the ebook. They could be someone that we may just give a courtesy call to just to find out how they're doing, different approaches to different markets. And again, we might be looking at multiple openers. Someone who's opened an email 15 times but hasn't actually clicked through indicates that has been forwarded on to a number of people within their organisation, or they're very, very interested in that email. But either way, it's just worth a courtesy call just to follow up in the offline environment. This runs on into a far more complicated process, but this is really put up here just for an example about how we utilise different digital channels, such as paid search, email marketing, web development. Also the international element of it can be targeted to different countries and have different questions and different languages, and also how we utilise CRM systems to their maximum to then personalise content moving forwards. Moving to the business to consumer side of things, I think everyone's received an email from someone like Amazon before or the like, where you bought this, you might be interested in this, or other people who bought this also bought this, to really get you to buy their product. The days of batch and blast email marketing are over. The days where you built your database up and got 10,000 people on your database, and then you send out one email to 10,000 people saying the same thing. Those kind of things don't work. They have worked. They're great. They've generated money, but it could be done so much better than just single one message fits all. What we like to do is we're starting to push clients through to this dynamic mailing based on behavioural driven actions or the actions that are based on buyer behaviour, whether that's interaction with an email or interaction with your site or your brand or your product in the past. So, for example, 2 mocked up emails we put together here, it's just pretty much saying, thank you for buying the football. You might also be interested in gloves, boots, shin pads. But someone who's bought a bike, you bought a bike, you might be interested in a bicycle helmet, a pump, etc. If we have someone come to stay at a hotel and we know they're a couple, they've stayed on a romantic break, we will follow them up with emails moving forwards that are very much orientated around couples. And the imagery used in the header of the email, the language being used, is very much around couples, short breaks, spa breaks, that kind of thing. If you've stayed as a family, or you've stayed with a dog, for example, and we've got, no comment on that one. We can actually put you into some very nice private and personal emails. If you've got, you've stayed with your family, we know that you've got kids, you're looking at family rooms, family breaks, school holidays, that kind of thing. If you stayed with a dog, you probably don't want a hotel to know about it, but we can orientate emails around any particular segment that we want to attract to the hotel. Same with corporate market, etc. But again, that's utilising information. It's marrying up 2 bits of information. It's marrying up the information that we're getting from the CRM system for the hotel, the property management system, which is saying someone came and stayed and they booked a double room, and they had 2 adults in there and a child staying on a pull-out bed, and they stayed for 2 nights, and they ate 1 night in a restaurant. Their average spend was X amount. We can start to categorise them into which kind of emails they're going to get moving forwards to try and encourage them to repeat purchase and minimise our marketing cost and maximise the conversion rate. With e-commerce, very similar. It's about taking the information from the purchase, what the buyer behaviour is, so the PMS system, or from the e-commerce system, that's your buyer behaviour. And what you're doing then is you're marrying that up with the behaviour information that we're getting from the email marketing. So if they've been onto your email marketing program before, you can start looking at which links have they clicked on in emails before, what time of day do they open their emails up, how frequently do they open emails, and you can then identify whether they're what we call advocates, brand advocates. If they're open 100% of every single email you've sent in the last 6 months, they're what we call brand ambassadors, brand advocates. They're the ones that you give sneak previews to your latest product, your new room at the hotel, whatever it happens to be. They're the ones that are going to be talking about you regardless whether you give them a deep discount. And then there are other people who may not open all of your emails and don't stay very often, but if you could reignite them in some way by offering them some kind of perhaps deep discount or increased value add, as we like to put in there nowadays, then we can try and get them back through the door. But we don't have to offer that deep discount or that big value add to every single one of the people on our database. We just offer it to the ones where we need to reignite them. There's no point offering a deep discount to somebody who's going to come anyway and spend the money. So it just gives you, very, very quickly, I know it's a bit of a whistle-stop tour about how you can utilise CRM systems, marketing automation, which this can be done through automation and dynamic content in both the business-to-business and business-to-consumer world, and just showing how things have moved over the last 10 years from being very much singular, siloed digital channels to integrated channels that very much work together, that can deliver much more efficient and intelligent results than perhaps we were being able to offer technologically wise 4 or 5 years ago. So thank you very much for your time. If you've got any questions for me, I'd love to take them now, and we can go through it. Andy?
Any particular, let's say, lead automation software that you would recommend?
Yeah, lead automation software is quite an interesting one. There are obviously the integrated marketing software programs like people like HubSpot, who have got very good integrated software and follow-ups. It can be done through an agency in a bespoke manner as well. Some of those off-the-shelf provisions can give basic requirements that may be good for simple singular product sets. Sometimes they need to be bespoke production, but again, if you're working with the right company or the right agency for your industry or your need, you can find out what works and what doesn't. I mean, most email marketing software will have dynamic content and automated email provision in there for business to consumer world. In B2B, that again depends on which CRM system you're using, which email marketing system you're using. But if you work with your agency to work out the best configuration on that and work out what's important to you for lead scoring, then they should be able to find a solution for you. So if you're working with us, first thing we do is sit down with the client and work out what they're trying to achieve, and work out if even marketing automation is actually needed, because certain elements of it at the top of the funnel, we do need marketing automation to sort out all of the sort of wheat from the chaff. But as it goes down through the channel, the funnel, the middle of the funnel, and down to the bottom of the funnel, there's a lot more manual interaction needed there. So we can do the initial scoring at the top, which is automated, but through the middle and bottom of the funnel, we very much need to be looking at that manual interaction and having a much better idea of the product set, which involves working very closely with the sales team of the company that we're working with. Does that help?
Yeah, I think so.
Just a question about cost of customer acquisition.
Yeah.
So, as you're trying to do like bespoke campaigns almost based on the previous clients' buying habits, are you costing in, if you're offering them a deep discount, like you said, is that being costed into the whole campaign, or is that being put in a different pot? Because if you're offering something at 30% discount, there's still a cost to that.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at the customer acquisition overall, take hotels as a really good example. Jamie and I were speaking just before the start of the session, talking very much about hotels. I mean, hotels sacrifice anywhere between 15 and 25% of their margins to an online travel agent like Booking.com, LateRooms.com. They are a necessary evil, but they can fill their bed nights, but they're not making any money out of it. They're not making any profit out of it. What we try and do is work with hotels and say, well, actually, maximise what you're getting from the online travel agents. With your paid search, you obviously want to be bidding for your brand name, for example, and for your hotel to try and knock them off the top spot, so they're spending money and coming to you directly rather than going to the OTAs. But if you are getting revenue in through the online travel agents where you are losing 15-25% margin, what you want to do is capitalise on the amount of data that you're able to capture once they've made that sale, and set them up into a targeted email marketing program after the event, where offering the same price as the online travel agents are offering, but give them a value add, like a free upgrade if they book with you directly rather than through the online travel agents. Certain restrictions to OTAs are going to put in there that you can't undercut them on price, for example, but you can do value adds. So when you're looking at customer acquisition, we tend to look at it as a whole of the customer journey. So looking at a combination of direct paid search, online travel agents, email marketing, any associated discounts we might be offering. Now, with hotels, we try to, particularly in the world that we operate in, we tend to operate at the luxury and boutique hotel market. Due to sort of brand degradation, we don't tend to offer deep discounts. What we tend to do is offer the value add, something you can get over and above what you'd get if you went to Secret Escapes or Lake Rooms. With your e-commerce side of things, you obviously need to be competitive, and obviously, as you know, in online retail, there's very tight margins we're working with anyway. But things like free delivery, I know there's a cost to the acquisition of that one, but free delivery, if you're booking off the back of this email, it's looking at the customer acquisition journey as a whole. And you might also be able, within your data sets, to be able to say, don't offer free postage and packaging to people who've already benefited from free postage and packaging in the last 3 months, for example, and you can actually set those automated rules up. But I would tend to I do tend to set margins for each digital channel, but I tend to look at it as margins for the whole process, from direct through to the most expensive, say for the hotel market, which I see has been online travel agents. So we tend to draw an average from all of them.
Thank you.
Okay.
Is there a reason you mentioned healthcare? Do you have experience in that sector?
Healthcare, I was just using an example of a workforce management company that works within, they might have 3 targets, and that was really just saying that they might be looking at 3 different sectors.
So you haven't got access to any healthcare company type databases of people that work in healthcare?
We do work with those kind of people, yeah. It depends on what you need.
I've got a client that might therefore be interested.
Yeah.
You and I can have a chat afterwards.
Yeah, sure. We'll have to have a chat with you afterwards, yeah. Jamie?
The sort of situation you described, people having all different channels, and then they're like, oh, we get a lot more benefit if we put them all together.
Yeah.
And that seems obviously like a really good idea, and everyone's sort of starting to do that. But then you sort of end up with this problem of like, well, what goes at the middle? Is it kind of like, my CRM system, or is it Google Analytics, or is it some sort of like automation system? And I think people are sort of struggling for like different answers to that. But do you have some sort of notion of what the best kind of thing to put at the middle is for kind of future-proofing it? Because obviously you don't want to do it and then think, in 2 years' time, no, I put the wrong thing at the middle, now it should be running off this, or it should be running off that.
Well, I think overall you need a very strong, robust content marketing strategy in terms of what is it you're trying to achieve. And we always go back right to the beginning of what is it the business is trying to achieve. Increasing revenues by a certain amount, increased profitability by a certain amount. Have they broken that down by channel? So we need to increase revenues online by X amount. Really working out what they're trying to achieve. That's making sure the business has firmly stated their objectives, which a lot of businesses, as those who work in agencies know, often don't know what their business objectives are or are unwilling to share that. And in my eyes, it's impossible to run a successful marketing or business development program unless you have those objectives, because you don't know what you're aiming for. And we certainly don't take anybody on in our agency as a client unless we can use that information, because we have to have those rules. Those ground rules need to be set out from the start. That then dictates obviously your objectives, your budget, your brand, so your tone of voice, the resource that you've got available, whether it's internal or external, to drive that marketing forward to achieve those results. So I would say that's the heart of it. That's the kind of the where we start. Everything else becomes the mechanism to deliver that message or to deliver those results. Whether that, I mean, we always put the in terms of if you're talking about the infrastructure, we'll always then put the website at the heart of it, because that for your online marketing, that's where you're looking at driving traffic to the online presence that you've got, and you've got different channels. If you imagine sort of the Spoke and Hub set up, you've got the different channels, your different social media channels, of which there could be 10, 15, 20 different social media channels depending on who you are, pointing at the website. You've then got your email marketing channels, you've got your paid search, you've got your organic search, etc., blog, obviously, in terms of content creation. So and then that will come down to personal preference based on what platform you're building your site on. You might want a bespoke one for your business. If you're e-commerce, you might want to go down the Magento route. If you're creating content and it's really words, it's a brochure-led site, you might want to go down something like WordPress. Again, with your CRM system, there's going to be personal preference, and that might depend on what sector. So, for example, I've got a client, as we talked about, in workforce management software, who they favour Salesforce.com because it's very much a B2B orientated product. But then, obviously, your property management systems for hotels, they might look for Hotel Perfect or one of the other property management systems that are taking the bookings and processing online. So Hotel Perfect is not going to be suitable for a workforce management company. Equally, Salesforce.com is not necessarily going to be suitable for a hotel like this. So again, that's down to personal preference. But I think the key with everything is to ensure that you are able to integrate the channels together, and that's very key for me. Is if we're looking at CMS, so looking at your content management systems for a website, looking at your CRM systems, or your email marketing programs, making sure there's key API information available for them to all talk to each other, and that's very, very key, because if you have one that goes rogue that can't speak to everything else, then obviously you're not going to pull the information together. As a whole, we look for Google Analytics being the premier product for bringing all the online analytics together. And as Rob, I'm sure, has shared in previous sessions and will be able to answer later on, that's also able to bring through offline elements to analytics as well now. So when you're still looking at your offline activity, it's still able to do that, and it can bring through your granular data you're getting from email marketing or elsewhere, bring that through to analytics to give the overview. But even then, some clients you're working with might still be looking for even a more simplified report. As you and I have just talked about before we started, some people want high-level results of how many people came to our website, how much cash did we make, and that's what they want to know. So again, it's horses for courses, but hopefully it gives you an idea of the thought process we go through in terms of when we're working out a marketing plan for somebody. All right.
I've got a question re content generation and time. I mean, obviously putting together quality content over time that is effective and adds value to customers takes time. So firstly, sort of who in practice implements that? Do your team generate content, or is that done within clients in-house? And if you do it for clients, how do you ensure that content is really high quality, authentic content that will drive the right sort of traffic for that client?
Well, I think, as I say, going back to having a strong, robust content marketing plan from the beginning before you even start writing content is key. Whoever writes the content, I mean, that's also going to be decided right from the beginning, where you're looking at resource. Do I have the internal resource, the time to write all of this information at the frequency that we require in order to achieve the results we want? Or do we need to look to outsource it? And if we're outsourcing to a third party, do we have the budget to do that? Us as an agency, we work in both respects. We create all the content for some clients, and that involves the content creator spending a lot of time with the client, with the product, understanding it, getting inside the heads of the client and the client's clients, more importantly, to understand what are the drivers. So in effect, they're acting as an extension of our client. The other methodology we utilise, particularly we work in the financial services sector, which can be, obviously, it's a highly regulated industry where you need to have the latest knowledge in a lot of circumstances, but the people wanting to produce the content don't have the time to write a nice polished article, but they can give very bulleted, high level, facts about what they want to include in that article, and they will send over like 10 bullet points of all the things they want to include in that article, and our content creators then work that up for them into something that will tell the story and lead them through the funnel to some kind of conversion at the bottom, some kind of call to action at the bottom. The client obviously signs that off to make sure that it's all okay. Also, clients write their own content and send to us, and then we can help them to optimise that, to tell the story, to get them through it. But obviously, content is useful for search engine optimization because it's relevant content. It has to be relevant to your target market. If you're just writing something that's, you know, interesting to you but not necessarily relevant either to your target market or to the objective you have for actually putting it up there, then it's going to be pointless. But if you've got content that you're creating that leads through to an objective, which is, you know, our objective of someone reading this is we want them to give them some kind of data capture, whether that's to download an ebook, whether that's to watch a video, whether that's to request an appointment. We're always putting that around the blog article at the bottom of the article to maximise that conversion rate. So that's again the process we go through, but the key questions at the beginning are how much time and resource have I got to create the content, and, you know, can we afford to, you know, actually outsource that to a third party. Consistency is key, relevance is key, and ensuring that you know, if you have taken it on yourself, that you don't go 3 months without writing anything and then suddenly write 8 articles and expect it to do the same job as you had before. And obviously that content is, you know, I'm sure Andy will be able to tell the group later, and I'm sure has done in the past, is content can be repurposed for different channels. So if you've written a blog article, that blog article could be turned into a short video, a 30-second video dit, can be turned into social media posts for different channels, whether it's LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, or whatever channel's appropriate. And can all be reutilised, repurposed, and pointed back to the site to that conversion point. Okay.
Thanks.
Any more questions before we?
If anyone's got any more questions, there'll be a bit of time at the end for any of the speakers as well. So yeah.
Yeah, I'll be here till the end of the evening. I'm passing over to Toby now. So thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Catherine.
There's a problem with Andrew Edlin. Okay, brilliant. Thanks very much. Thanks, Stafford, and obviously thanks very much for everyone for coming here. I'm going to be talking about agile web design. As many of you will know, I'm quite a sort of fan advocate of agile as a methodology. I've seen it completely revolutionise how we deliver projects and how customers end up with more satisfaction. They end up with less stress, less hassle, but also better delivery against budgets. So quite often lower budgets, or they use their budget in a different way as they move through the project. And certainly on the sort of more complex web developments, we're finding that, you know, a lot of people find agile a little bit unnerving because it's, you know, it sounds like you're not going to have a fixed budget, but certainly virtually all of our pipeline of new customers now are people who decided not to go agile the first time, and I've now realised that actually, you know, a fixed budget means everything's fixed and you can't change anything unless you spend more money. So actually, it's not a fixed budget. But one of the things I've really noticed actually is that this all applies to more complex cloud solutions, software development, and more complex web development. However, agile isn't really being applied particularly well to just basic web development, and so essentially a lot of website projects where you're looking at the sort of front end, you know, new designs and things like that, I think that they could really benefit from using some of the principles of agile. But first of all, if we look at the sort of traditional, this is a traditional web design life cycle. So, you know, some of the timings are longer than they perhaps might be, or some. I've certainly seen other case studies where situations where actually some of the timings I put in here are actually much shorter than actually what happened in real life. But so typically a company will think, right, we need a new website. They'll spend about 6 months sort of planning how they're going to get this new website. Obviously, they find an agency that's going to deliver it. And, then they have lots of meetings with different ones, and then they sort of plan out what their objectives are for a new website. And then they go into a design phase, and that goes backwards and forwards, and they need to source some photographs or whatever, and it might take 3 months, and then the build and testing phase takes sort of 3 months, and the content population takes another 3 months because actually they need to get a copywriter in, then they realise that actually at that stage you actually got to go back and redesign part of the site because it's not going to achieve what you wanted it to achieve. That takes another 3 months, and then you do some user testing. And I was involved in doing somebody asked me to do some user testing on a site for a national company, and the other day I looked at it and went, so is the primary objective this? And they went, no, that's only 1% of our business. It's like, well, and they actually had to go back and completely redevelop the homepage. But anyway, you then sort of go through final tweaks in the next month, and you then launch and think, well, we need to do a big launch on this, loads of PR, so we've got to have everything lined up. That takes another month, and then you start spend the next 3 years realising that the website doesn't do what some of the things that you now want it to do, and you build a list of new requirements, and then you start going back to the beginning and you start planning again. So that's roughly about a sort of 5-year cycle, and I've seen a lot of companies actually following that kind of approach. It's sort of every 5 years or so they get a new website. And that's, that 5 years life cycle is meant to be trying to help that company achieve its business objectives. And so basically they have an opportunity every 5 years to kind of move the business forward. And typically this sort of normally involves what I call the Big Bang approach, which is where you launch a massive new website, and it's taken 2 years to actually from concept to delivery, or it might be that you can do it in 6 months. Everyone thinks they can do it in 6 months, and then actually it becomes 7 or 8 or 9 or 10, and then. But essentially you end up with this sort of one big new website, everything launched at once. Actually, with this process, there's always delays, unexpected delays, which actually mean that quite often. Websites from a company decided they're going to get a new website. There's so many delays involved in that. It quite often goes over a year, sometimes 2 years. I was talking to somebody the other day where it was actually 2.5 years from deciding to have a new website to actually getting it delivered. And what you find with that new website compared to the old website, there's some bits of the website which are good. There's good aspects to it, and there's some bits that are less good. And it's actually quite difficult to work out what part of the new website is actually causing an increase in traffic or more inquiries, more sales, and which bits are actually detracting from that. You just don't know. So this is a classic. This is a news article about came out about a week or two ago. Marks and Spencer's that launched a new website on, I think it was the 18th of February or something. And the last quarter sales have had a massive drop for them. Bearing in mind that online sales are, for most businesses, online sales are going up year on year on year. So you would be expecting, a company like that would be expecting to have a 10% growth each year, at least, for online sales, just by standing still. But no, they actually spent £150 million on a new website. Big launch and lots of excitement, and it results in an 8% drop in sales. So that was their previous website. This is from archive.org, the Wayback Machine, on the 9th of January, and this is the new website. So, but this website does not produce as much sales as that website. And I could ask, well, what's the difference? What actually made the difference?
I'll tell you.
Yeah.
I was a regular user of the old site, and I tried purchasing off the new site. You had to re-register with the new site. I loaded a few things in my basket, like they were running a promotion on kids' school clothes, and things disappeared out of my basket. I'd go to check out, and I'd had 3 items, and then there was only one when I went to check out. And I went back 3 times, refilled my basket, and then I just gave up. And it's also really slow. It's incredibly slow compared to the old one.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, they spent, they spent 100. There's been a lot of articles saying, I mean, that those that I have come up, and there's various others about the navigation.
Yeah.
The navigation is different. Personally, I think this one was more successful because it, within the actual menu, compared to the new one, this one's got lingerie at the top of it in the top menu structure, which obviously probably gets more traffic, perhaps, Rob, maybe. So, anyway, so essentially, this big bang approach of here's the new website, and then, partly because for various reasons, and there were a number of different reasons, 8%. We don't know. Is it the site speed that results in a 1% drop, or a 2% drop, or a 3% drop, or is it the registration? Just how many customers were actually lost as a result of not being able to carry on through their registration process? But certainly the analysis, to me, it all looks a classic example of how they've just gone, right, here we're going to go for one big new website, and without being able to benefit from a truly agile approach, where you can actually discover some of these, things like not being able to transfer the data from one website to another is a massive fail. If you're going to have that, you need to be failing early, and that's where one of the principles of Agile is, of course, failing early. So this is the article on e-consultancy that was written the day after it was launched, and talks about curation, clustering, and content. Brilliant, and there's quite a long article, and it sort of talks about what an amazing website this is going to be, and all this sort of stuff. And then the second comment at the bottom is actually a guy saying, "Oh, I'm going to stick my neck out here and say I think it's actually going to be a real failure." And the author is just responding, comes back in and goes, "No, don't be so stupid," blah, 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 all this sort of stuff. And obviously, as time goes on, they've discovered that actually it has been a complete failure. So what normally happens in this situation is to prevent this from happening, you need some gurus. You need some, people with goatees and whatever. And I did check that nobody was actually. That's not really a goatee, James. And you don't build websites, so that's right. But you get these sort of self-confessed gurus, sort of saying, "Oh wow, we know how to do this better, and we can predict the future." And to me, it all sounds great, but in reality, of course, it just doesn't happen. Can you really predict the future? I don't think so without obviously a fortune teller or crystal balls and things. But in reality, I think there is actually a far better way of actually avoiding that massive loss in sales that can happen typically when you go for this sort of massive big bang approach. So there is a better way. First of all, stop doing the big bang approach. Make change more subtly. So in lots of small steps of change. And thinking smaller actually allows you to move faster. If you're just changing a small part of a website, maybe just changing the images, introducing new photographs, for example, you can do that pretty quickly. If you've got to do that and tie it in with copywriting and redesigning the menu and doing everything, then the whole process is just going to take a very long time. So this is how Agile can help. Agile typically looks at one of the principles behind Scrum, which is a kind of version of Agile, is lots of small iterations. And those small iterations means that you can then display what you've done. So the idea is frequent delivery, so that the product owner can actually, or the customer can actually see what's happened in the past 2 weeks. And is that right? Does it need to change? Is there a new idea? Perhaps they want to go in a different direction. But essentially, having that really frequent, fast release, so you're not necessarily releasing something publicly, but you're releasing it onto a staging test environment, allows for far faster and more change, and it allows customers actually to influence how how their end product is going to be actually delivered. There's about transparency. Having a really open, frequent communication actually aids the whole principle of transparency. And as I say, frequent releases, so that if you're certainly releasing internally, so releasing into a staging environment very frequently, then that allows, with some transparency, that allows the customer to actually be involved in seeing how the project's developing. It allows them also to actually pull the plug if they think that it's going in the wrong direction. If something is definitely wrong, for example, you can't log in, you can't use your existing login details to get into the new website. You can have a meeting about that and say, is this really important? Yes, it is. Right, okay, now we need to actually do something about that. And then that's where the development team and everybody involved in the development needs to actually get together and understand. The developers need to understand that that's actually a really important requirement by the product owner. So some other aspects of Agile, which is the concept of the minimum viable product. So this is where you try and do the smallest amount of work to get something that works so that people can then look at it, trial it, use it, and then think, right, we've learnt from that, now we also need it to do the next little thing. So the principle of minimum viable product, some of the concepts, these are sort of new concepts that we've brought into Agile on the Beach in September, the conference in Falmouth, is Lean UX, is sort of quite fast growing, so UX as in user experience. So some of the principles and learnings there are worth considering. Better product management, not project management. So actually, if people have as much passion about the product as possible, as opposed to creating just extra Gantt charts or whatever, then you're going to be a far more agile organisation. And as one of the other organisers of the conference he said the other day on Twitter, is like, you hear about, in large organisations, you have project management offices and project management teams, but you very rarely have product management offices. You kind of, it's sort of some fits, but it doesn't really, nobody really actually owns the product, and that's so important in terms of how you deliver. The client has to have somebody in charge of that product, the product being the website, and if they're not totally engaged with what needs to be delivered, then that's going to cause failure. And then on to the more technical side of things like test-driven development can really help. Behavioural-driven development is absolutely fantastic. This is basically where you take English sentences written in English in a set format, and that basically describes what a system needs to do, what a website needs to do, and then it basically just automatically produces tests from that. So automated testing is very important. So in simple terms, you have a system which basically can test an entire website, which means as it's developing, every time you do something which then breaks another part of the website, the developer is automatically alerted to that they've caused a problem. A test in the other areas of the site have failed, and then things like continuous integration and continuous delivery. Essentially, these are absolutely fantastic. So, as a site's being built, providing all the tests pass, it will automatically upload into a staging environment. If the tests fail, it won't, and it will alert things, and it will do things like continuous integration. Actually, will tell you that a person, or say which developer, has made the last commit to the version control system, and it will say they have broken another part of the site inadvertently, and they have done that when they changed the following lines of code in the following files. And therefore, that developer could then go, oh, yeah, I've broken something over here. Right, I can now fix it very quickly. It massively speeds up the QA process and the testing and reduces bug fixing immensely. And that's it. Any questions? Jamie?
Yeah, thanks. So, I agree with you about obviously nobody's got a crystal ball and everyone's got to be wise in retrospect. So Marks and Spencer's, you know, they have to wait until they see their bottom line and then they're like, oh my god, the website is like killed us. So the question then is, so what do you use to make those sorts of judgments? So is it something like sort of split testing in Google Analytics or something like that, or is there some other sort of tools that you use to sort of see, you know, how good it is when you do like an iteration?
Yeah, I mean, split testing is obviously it's quite complex to set up, but I mean, you know, it obviously depends how big the budget is. But you know, even if you did like a month of one version and a month of a second month of another version, obviously you do have seasonal impacts there. But if you've got historical data, then you can at least sort of assess whether or not, you know, changing the menu structure is just such a massive big deal on a site with lots of frequent users. And you know, if you just try a slightly different menu structure, you will get so many outputs, so many goals will you know, the resulting differences in goals in analytics will be massive. And so just focusing on that, first of all, you know, as one part of the site, allows you to really know whether or not you've made the right decision. And then you can always go, let's, you know, yes, you've done some work and you've paid some money to have some changes done, and then you've seen that those changes, you know, have either increased sales or they've decreased sales or results. And, you know, okay, if they decrease sales, you throw it away and you go, well, you know, okay, we lost £1,000 there by putting that change into place. You know, okay, you've lost £1,000, but actually you've stopped yourself losing a hell of a lot more than £1,000 down the line. So, and that's the sort of difficulty I think people have in sort of grasping this concept, that actually, you know, kind of this sounds like it's going to be really expensive, and it's like, yeah, but if you don't do it, then it's going to be really expensive, you know. And you know, it won't be just a case of like, oh, we might have sort of spent some budget twice, or, you know, we've done the job twice. Yeah, but you've done the job twice to get the right result, which then actually results in, you know, you're not losing your job because the, you know, things are going down the pan.
It's like education. Education's expensive, but a lack of education is more expensive.
Yes.
Educating yourself by experience.
Yeah, absolutely, and being able to make the decisions along the way. Andy,
I was just thinking, you're advocating small iterative steps, but that must rely on having the infrastructure in place in the first instance.
Yeah, I mean,
it's just, you know, for like Marks and Sparks made a decision to build a new website for whatever reason, but perhaps one of the reasons was it was the end of the shelf life for the one they had. They couldn't take it any further.
Yeah, quite possibly, but I mean, working out the long plan of like, right, we're going to need this. These are all the new requirements we have for the new website, and then saying, right, okay, how can we achieve those objectives in the smallest number of, well, the largest number of small steps possible, in order to, so that, you know, for example, you know, you might actually, if the back end system is not actually capable of keeping up to speed, maybe you do actually rebuild the back end, but you actually keep the front skin identical.
So just to clarify, is the Agile as a process, it's platform agnostic?
Yeah. So it's a methodology of like how you approach projects really and how you deliver things.
Sorry. I was just going to say, if you have a lot of traffic, then that sort of testing, small iteration is probably quite easy to get data back for, and quite quick. But if it's a new site and you've got low traffic levels, presumably you've got to make each change and not change anything else, so that you can measure what
I mean, you make a certain number of changes each step. If you make all the changes in one go, then you really don't know which ones are going to be effective. It's going to take a year, but don't forget that generally sites that have got much lower traffic numbers are generally sort of kind of smaller businesses, lower budgets anyway. So actually, you don't want to be changing things every 2 weeks because you won't have the budget for it. But actually, you do need to perhaps say every quarter make some change. Just make some changes each quarter, which actually for most businesses is actually better from a cash flow perspective anyway. So.
I would say I work with financial services companies doing software development, and they'll, even in startup mode, they'll try to simulate volume. So they'll spend as much time trying to develop an automated feed of test volume, you know, through, so they can test their throughput, as they will in developing the GUI, because they need to make sure that they handle volume, and that's one of their key business criteria. So you can always simulate that to a certain extent anyway.
Yeah, for sort of load testing and that sort of principally load testing, I guess. I mean, in terms of actually understanding user experience behaviours and things, then yeah, I mean, you know, you need a certain number of people to go through the site, but you know.
Can't really simulate human behaviour.
Well, this is the classic example. When you ask people to test a site, you get a group of people and you say, "Can you test this website?" And so they go, "Right, what have I been asked to do? I've got to test it. Right, I've got to find problems with it." So they go and look at a site, and then they go, "Right, I've got a big list of problems now." And of course, actually, that's totally artificial, because actually, you know, I mean, obviously, if there's actual functional, you know, breakages and things, then they might find those. But actually, it's not a true measurement of actual, real potential customer or visitor behaviour. So, and that's one of the key principles of sort of lean UX. Really, is actually about just doing the smallest amount of changes and actually measuring the change in behaviour of people actually going through the website.
Yeah, so going back to the M&S example, so for whatever reason they decided they need to move off the platform they were on, and for whatever reason they've decided the one they've gone with, the existing site has got a certain number of features and functionality that the new one has to have at least that. So whatever the new stuff is, that's not, you know, but it has to have at least that. So a minimum viable product. So this big bang approach, how do you get around that? Because at some point you have, you know, it's pretty substantial what they had, and so the minimum viable product is pretty substantial for the new one. So actually, how would you not do a big bang approach with that?
Well, what you would do is, if you were moving from one site, you know, you've got a busy site at the moment, and you know it's taking thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of orders a day, sort of, you know, in that situation, well, you know, it's pretty high risk whatever you do. So I would be suggesting that you would probably start from just rebuilding the back end. So you build a new back end to it, which is there's a big chunk of
re-platform, but leave the front as it is.
So leave the front identical.
And then start the...
Yeah, so you build all the functionality you need into the new back end, and the new back end is built with the experience and knowledge of what doesn't work in the current code base. So you build a new code base, but just with an identical front end, but with the vision of knowing that you're going to need to have that feature, or a list of future features. So you actually then, in effect, nobody should be able to know the difference.
Yeah.
You know. Now, of course, if the project messes up because the new back end is rubbish, then of course actually you just switch back and say, look, sorry guys, you know, it's far too slow or whatever, you know. But I mean, providing you've got the right development team, then that shouldn't happen. And then you say, right, okay, now we're going to change the menu structure, which is a major one. I mean, and you know, you test out different menu structures, and of course the new back-end system is actually innate. You build it with the knowledge that you are going to be changing around just the menu system, and therefore the categorization and all of that functionality needs to be built into it. But by just changing small parts at a time, you can then know whether or not you've made the right decision or the wrong decision.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Okay, shall we?
Cool.
We can take any more questions at the end again. So if we move on to Rob when you're ready.
Good evening, everybody. Just a bit of an update from myself, really, on a few things that have gone on in the last 6 months or so. When we were down in the less well-connected Tremo Innovation Centre that doesn't have a super fast internet connection like we have here, we weren't able to communicate properly with the offline audience or the people that were online away from site here. So what we have seen is a much more connected environment, and this is the first slide that we saw in the first session that we actually ran this year. And what we've actually seen now is greater change in connectivity. My arm became disconnected in February when I broke it, but since then we've seen more connectivity. So we've seen more superfast broadband rolled out. Andrew and myself have been to 4 or 5 different countries so far this year, and still we haven't found anywhere with a faster internet connection than the majority of places in Cornwall. So I think the thing is here is we're always fairly close to a superfast connection, although some people still aren't connected yet. The other thing that we're starting to see now is a massive change in wearable technology. I've brought a few bits and pieces with me today for you to take a look at as well. But we're starting to see more and more Internet of Things, if you like. We've just we just took delivery of our Nest thermostat just as the temperature went like that. So we've actually not really used it at all, but we know how much energy we haven't used. But we're starting to see more and more internet connected devices that are coming into the home. The other thing that we've seen a massive change in, as predicted this year, is the adoption of mobile devices. So without exception now, certainly all of our clients across probably about 300 or so sites, we're seeing in just about every case more traffic from mobile and tablet devices, and actually quite a rapid growth in handheld mobile devices as well. We were with a hotel last week. They were seeing about 60-70% of the traffic come from mobiles and tablets, and I still think by the end of this year the majority of you are going to see about 80% of your traffic coming from mobile devices. We have also seen some different technology come out, so we've brought Google Glass along with us this evening as well for you to have a little experiment with. There's a number of different wearable technologies that are coming out. Android have launched Android Wear as well now, so more about that in a moment. We're still in this ridiculous situation though that the majority of people out there don't have any provision really, any suitable provision for mobile website. And seem to be just burying their head in the sand. But we are seeing people now losing business because they don't have adequate provision for mobile. There have been quite a few changes at Google in this in the first 2 quarters this year, or first 6 months. We've started to see better adoption of search remarketing and remarketing lists for search advertising coming into analytics. I'll talk a little bit more about the changes in analytics in a moment. We've seen more support for dynamic remarketing outside of just e-commerce onto accommodation and other feed-based products. We've also started to see remarketing by segment in analytics. So any unified segment that you want to define in analytics, you can remarket to that to those people. So you could choose somebody who'd for example, somebody who'd hovered over an image on your site and you wanted to target just those people that had hovered over that image, you can do that now. Or you could target people who speak German, who live in America, who are male, who are age between a certain range. We can really target now, remarket to those people as well. Search has changed a little bit, not hugely over the last 6 months actually. We have seen some changes to YouTube. We've seen upgrades to the YouTube campaigns. We've seen a simplification of the way that we advertise using AdWords on YouTube. We've seen 2 changes to what have previously been called product listing ads. They're now changing to shopping campaigns. By the end of next month, everybody will be forced to use that new format, which is much easier to control. So those of you that have got e-commerce sites or helping people promote e-commerce sites, you'll notice that the shopping campaigns are much easier to control now, and we've seen them performing much better than the product listing ad campaigns because it gives you much more control. We've also seen the announcement a few months ago of changes to the product's feed specification. So those of you that have got clothing websites or websites where you have product variants, the more stringent restrictions that are coming in for those type of things. There's a change to the in stock, out of stock, available to pre-order availability status is there as well. So quite a few changes there. We've seen a little bit of a tidy up of search results and a few changes. I'm not going to talk about algorithm updates. The algorithm updates are always going on and always improving, in my eyes, the quality of the search results and filtering out the people that are cheating or doing things that are not recommended, let's say. The big thing we've seen this year, though, is really the change in wearable technology. It still is very, very early days, very, very early days. At Google I/O, Android Wear was really given a big push, and that's the operating system that's going to be pushed out into some of these products. I was hoping that we might have a Moto 360 watch to show you today, but they're still running a little bit late. It was scheduled for July for production. Now they're just saying it's going to be sometime in summer. But I think that really, in terms of the device, the look and feel of that device is something that's a little bit more acceptable. I've bought a Sony Smartwatch 2 with me, which looks a little bit geeky. You know, it's not a pleasant looking piece of technology. But the Moto 360 is a really nice, really nice looking device. It's circular. It's probably much more socially acceptable, and that's going to be running Android Wear. We've also got the two devices that have been launched over the last few weeks, Samsung Gear Live and the LG G Watch as well. They're a bit of a move forward in terms of wearable technology, but personally I think the Moto 360 is going to be the one that is going to make it, and the big one that will get things moving. Google Glass, as most of you know, we've brought it with us this evening. Those of you who'd like to experience it, then just let us know at the end. Remember, it is still very, very early days for this piece of technology. It's still quite expensive. It's only available in the US and the UK. There's not many of us that have got them in the UK at the moment. But it is very much in its early days. And we've been experimenting with it both technically but also socially. You know, so a week last Sunday I went round Falmouth in it, got a couple of weird looks from some people, and nobody did call me nobody did call me a glasshole, so it's okay. But it is still a little bit unusual for people. I'm sure in 3 or 4 years' time, something along these lines, maybe not this exact device itself, but something along these lines will be as commonplace as maybe mobile phones and tablets and that sort of thing. We've seen a lot of bad press, people particularly talking about wearing devices in cinemas and that sort of thing. But to me, it's no real difference to somebody walking into a cinema holding the phone like that. But some people are getting a little bit upset about it rather than actually looking at the opportunities it could bring. But again, you've still got to be careful where you wear it. Don't wear it in a toilet. It's very, very easy to accidentally take and share a photo, as my friend's daughter found out. Fortunately, it wasn't that bad. So come and have a play. Be gentle with it though, and appreciate that it is still very much in its early days. It's only just beyond a prototype, really. It's still very early days.
Rob, so what do you see the advantages or potentials of it?
Well, I think that's what this period is all about. You know, people exploring it and seeing what it can do and where you use it and where you won't use it. Some of the social things have been quite interesting. So for me, because I've never worn glasses, I found it a little bit weird actually having something on my face indoors. Very peculiar. Somebody who wears glasses maybe won't have that kind of issue. When the device first turned up, accidentally forgot to order the shades with it. So and I have very, very sensitive eyesight, so I can't go outside in most light without sunglasses on. But actually the plug-in shade side of things has made all the difference, and it's almost like it gives me like a little barrier to hide behind. So I feel much more comfortable outside with the shades on than I probably would do inside without them on. But you can get prescription lenses now. But I think it's still it's still far too early for us to say it's going to be great for this or it's going to be great for that. We're just experimenting with it, and it's just getting to grips with it.
You personally, you've got something you hope it becomes useful for?
I don't hope it becomes useful for anything. It will become useful for what people find it useful for and where they find it useful to be. So I don't have a closed mind. I want it to work for that. It will just evolve. We'll start wearing it more or start wearing it less in some situations. One thing, when we were over in Dublin when we tried it last year, some of the feedback that people were getting is that once you get used to actually wearing it all day, every day, then capturing that moment that you wouldn't necessarily capture if you were trying to fiddle around, trying to get a mobile phone out your pocket and turn it on and take a photo when you've missed that moment. I'm not very child friendly, but I know a lot of you've got children and that, so if they're doing something that's quite funny, you want to video it, or something that you want to capture, you can capture it instantly. So I think the photo quality is pretty good, or the image quality is pretty good, video is pretty good. So it's maybe some of those sort of things that are going to be useful. I think really on the imagery side of things, and we've already seen some people in the medical world using it to train people in other parts of the world and that as well. But it is still early days, so there's still very few applications available for it as well at the moment. So there's more and more coming all the time, of course, but because it's only available in 2 countries and to a very, very small audience, and it is still very expensive if you want to buy one commercially, it's still over £1,000. So when it comes into to mainstream, we're hoping probably it'll be around a couple of £100, and then maybe more and more people will start to pick it up, and then things will really start to move. But I don't think we'll see that kind of movement there. So it's just a case of it's new. Have a fiddle around with it. Use it until the battery wears out this evening, and see what you think you might be you might want to do with it. But try and keep an open mind is what I'd say. A lot of people are just reading the press, but people are driving with it and getting prosecuted. People are trying to get PIN numbers for people in cash machines and those sort of things, and to me it's no different to somebody carrying a camera around, but still there are a lot of people who don't like new technology and think it's really bad, but actually the potential is exceptionally good, but people will find bad ways to use it as well, so we'll just see how it goes. Moving on from wearable technology back to more kind of Google geeky stuff, we've seen quite a few developments within Google Tag Manager. For those of you who aren't aware what Google Tag Manager is, it's a tagging platform or tagging system that allows you to have editable rule-based sections in your website to deploy the likes of Google Analytics. We use it now a lot to put in additional code to record weather conditions, let's say, for example, with people that are visiting websites, so we can spot trends in whether people buy more when the weather's bad in their part of the world, or if they book more holidays when it's nice here, and to very, very, very quickly deploy things like cross-domain tracking, things like tracking external links, PDF downloads, those sort of things, events, non-interaction events and interaction events on websites. I'd recommend you all adopt Google Tag Manager as soon as you can do. It is it's a super product. We've come out of that phase of it's just something that Google are trying. It's now a fully supported Google product, and Google are trying to encourage everybody to use it as we are as well. It makes our life a lot easier. I brought a couple of Chromecasts. I've got Andrea's freshly packed, barely unopened Chromecast. She didn't realise I brought it with me. Also, you'll see on that TV at the back, sorry for those of you that are just on the live stream, but a Chromecast is like a cheap Apple TV. It's £35. And actually, whilst we were away last week, there was an update to it. So you can now just cast, you can just live cast your mobile phone or your laptop straight onto that. It works via Wi-Fi. and we could actually watch the video that's being cast here. We can go onto Facebook and see what's going on, but you'll actually see that we've got you can actually play video on that. The quality's got better and better. When it first came out, it was a little bit poor, but it is getting better now. I'll try and go to YouTube. Hopefully there won't be anything too.
And it's this little blue and white box here, Rob, is it?
No. The Chromecast itself. So if you just pass me that box there. The Chromecast. If you can get it out of the box, that's a difficult bit. That's all it is. So it's a very, very, very small, device. It's just got an HDMI connector there, just plugged straight into your TV. It's got a micro USB for the power there, and you can just as soon as it's set up, very, very easy to set up. It's the easiest piece of technology I had to set up this evening. But once it's in, you can just from your phone, from your laptop, from other devices, just automatically cast video onto TVs. I tried to do the projector here. I was hoping to run it through the projector this evening, but it's a very old projector. I had to go through a couple of connectors, and it just didn't want to play. But now we've got the ability to cast straight from a device. It'll do audio and everything else as well. Just a tiny little thing. 35 quid. They've been made available in the UK for about three months now. Is it something like that? We had one from that we ordered from China last year, just to experiment with it. But these are available now. The Apple equivalent is 100 quid, and it's a bigger box, and that this just plugs in the back. I carry one now around for presentations, just in a bag. It's a tiny product, but very powerful. And you can see all the cables that we've got around here this evening, and it does away with a cable to the projector. I do need to have a non-1970s projector, really. But
does that work with Apple devices?
it's you can cast from if you've got Chrome on your device, then you can do you can cast from that.
Apple, only from an Android device.
But it will show you where the nearest shop is where you can buy a proper phone. Actually, one of the things I've not looked at the figures now. One of the things that we have been seeing, we saw towards the back end of last year, and we saw very much this year, is the take up in Android as an operating system. People are getting bored and fed up with spending 3 times as much for an iPhone that is slower than a Nexus 5 or some of the other devices are out there. And what we're seeing is a massive shift over to Android on the handheld mobile device, and people abandoning Apple and iOS because of the problems and the expense that's in there. Now, I'm not to. I did try an iPhone 4 once, but very much a Mac person on the on laptops and desktops. But on a mobile device, I'd much rather have an Android device. They are a lot cheaper and a lot quicker, a lot more powerful. And even some people like Aaron, who's not here with us this evening, who was Apple all the way through, has now moved to the Android side. So that is one of the big things that's driving adoption of mobile. Cheaper technology, cheaper tablets. You can get a tablet now for 20, 30 quid. You can the phones come as free as part of contracts, or you can buy Android devices. There was something in the press a little while ago about very, very cheap Android devices for the third world, and I think they were I can't remember if they're less than $10 or something like that. They're very, very cheap products. So have a play around with Chromecast. If you've got an Android device, you can cast straight to it. There's no security on it, so please be careful what you cast. James has also brought along the Leap Motion as well, which is it's like a gesture sensing device as well. We haven't plugged it in yet. We're running a little bit short of time, but if any of you wants to play with that, I'm sure James won't mind. And then just to finish up from my side of things, Google Analytics back in April. Universal Analytics became the operating standard for analytics. So we now don't really refer to it as Universal Analytics. It has replaced what is called Classic Analytics, and it is now Analytics. That brings with it the ability to track age, gender, interest categories. We can track offline data. We can see a whole host of additional things that are going on, not only with websites but inside applications. And from the outside world, temperature, weather conditions, footfall. You can track anything. Offline data for bookings, offline sales, everything you can push into Universal Analytics now. Launched very, very recently, although it's been tested now for about 3 or 4 months, is the next stage of e-commerce tracking with analytics. And it's called Enhanced E-commerce Tracking. It must have taken them ages to come up with that name. But the Enhanced E-commerce Tracking allows us to understand a lot more about what's going on with the behaviour of the shopper, what they're putting into, when they put stuff into the basket, when they take stuff out of the basket, how they properly work their way through the checkout process. It gives us a lot more data to look at within e-commerce sites. In the main works on the data layer code that is available through Google Tag Manager. So although it is possible to implement this just through natively coded analytics tracking code, I'd recommend that you put it in place with Google Tag Manager. And by the end of the year, pretty much all e-commerce sites, I would say, will be able to have that feature enabled. It's not available on all accounts yet, but in the next month or two, it will be available on everybody's account, and we'll be encouraging people to use it because it gives us so much more information. As Toby was talking about, Marks and Spencer, they don't know what, presumably don't know what went wrong. This might give some kind of indication of what went wrong, and it might give some indications on how they put it right. So big changes to analytics. It's been a big year so far for analytics. There are a lot of very exciting changes which I'm not allowed to talk about yet that are coming probably a month or two before Christmas as well. So it's going to be a very, very interesting second half of the year for analytics. So that's me done. I'm going to be around all evening. So if you've got any questions now, please feel free to ask. If you just want to have a play with some toys, then help yourself. There's not many of us here today, so a little bun fight will be all it will take. Please don't pull the Google Glass like that. It will break. It is very delicate.
Will you be able to look at analytics at people who are viewing your site through Google Glass?
Yes, you can. Yeah, you can see that already. In fact, we've already started to look at what data is available to us through people viewing through Glass. One of the first things that we've found through Glass is if it becomes a widely accepted product, or these kind of devices, but also wearable technology in the form of watches, you're going to have to change the way that navigation on websites work, because it's very difficult to navigate around a normal website or even a mobile friendly website or mobile optimized or responsive site through Glass, and that might mean that we need to start thinking about voice-based navigation or something totally different for watch-based. So the Google Glass and watches are based on gestures as well, so you can swipe backwards and forwards, and we really need to start thinking about from a design and development point of view how it might make those interfaces better for people that are using those devices. As you'll see with Glass when you try it, so if you were looking for directions to the nearest bar or nearest cafe, then it'll actually take you into a Google product. It'll actually take you into Google Maps or something like that, or and it will give you the information rather than the last thing it will try to do is send you to the website, because obviously they understand that navigating websites is quite difficult. With Google Glass, which I'll try it, let me just try an example now. I'll just get rid of that Facebook message, which is obviously going to be a rude comment. So looking at the screen now, I'll take the shades off as well, it's a bit weird in here. So the idea of Google Glass, you've also got the ability to screencast, so you should be able to see this works in a moment. The screencast doesn't work particularly well with. No, the Chromecast is not working particularly well with glass. So again, it's one of these things that we've been seeing. I will just give it a little try. So when we've got this set up to actually do kind of proper presentations through glass, when we're casting the screen, you should be able to see what I can see in a moment. So I hope this one does come up actually. Yeah, it might come up in a second. I think you might want to have a look at this one, Mr. Sumner. So you can actually see what I can see through here as well. So I'd say there's a bit of a delay because of the way that this works. So hopefully we'll be able to see the images I can see in a moment. When you look at glass, as you'll see in a moment, it's like the equivalent of looking at a 23-inch TV screen. So it's quite strange to describe that to you now, but when you put it on, you'll be able to see that. So that is pretty much what I can see in my right eyeball at the moment, which does sound a little bit weird, but there's there's a lot. There's a few different apps on here and that you might find useful as well. The Viewfinder has just been launched in the latest firmware version. So when you're actually looking around now, you can't see it there now. You can actually see you can see a picture of what you can see, which sounds a bit strange, but you can see what the camera sees. So then you can go and line your shot up and then take a photo at that point. It has got a wink feature, which is probably one of the more weird features of Google Glass, and it's. You can take a photo if you wink.
I have to say, one really obviously though.
Yeah.
I think, God, that's really strange.
Yeah.
Because he's not used to wearing glasses.
Yeah.
Because I wear glasses, but I find just saying, "Okay, glasses, take a picture," and then just wink. I find that a lot easier.
Because I mean, as he was kind of like stroking the side.
No, I find stroking the side difficult because my hair gets there. So,
but I'm just saying, I can see why there's been backlash.
He has more of an issue wearing it than I do.
There's a whole new language and a whole new vocabulary that is going to be built around us.
You struggle more wearing it than me.
I do, yeah, very much so. And I think, for people that have got longer hair, then maybe it's not going to be as obvious to people. But as Andrew said, actually using it with long hair is a real problem. Toby is obviously not going to have that issue.
Just talk to yourself. I used to do it anyway, so
Is there any conversation going on that you're aware of internally with Google? So there must be, but you might think, in terms of they're being criticised for the fact you do a Google search and it comes up with the Google Map results, and that's their product, and it's great, you're driving, you type it in and you hit navigate and you go and navigate, and it's great, but they're being criticised for that. They have an effective monopoly on quite a few things, and they argue that they've got the stats to back up by their own stats, that they are delivering the answer you want, but because of their market power or scale, they're kicking out the ability for someone else to come in with something that's maybe better or maybe has a feature or maybe would just be a preference, and you don't have the ability to change that. I know we've now got, you can get stuff removed about sent in, stuff just in the UK.
Yeah, well, it's in the whole of Europe actually.
The whole of Europe. But is there a Google? Is there any plans to sort of let users have more control of that, or is it not conversations?
What I will say is results are being much more heavily influenced now by Google Plus, which I know in itself is a Google product. But if people are starting to use Google Plus in the way that Google would like you to use it, then you will be indicating the type of products that you enjoy. So Google do only serve you up with what they think you want. If people start doing a search and they start clicking on other non-Google products and doing that, then that will be a signal to Google that people prefer that option, and they'll serve that more frequently. So if I search for my name, sometimes I'll see a result for our website, and sometimes I'll see a result that's on Facebook, or maybe LinkedIn, or a totally non-Google product. And it's only based on the fact that if people are looking for me, or whatever it might be searched for, that comes up more frequently. So to Google, their mission is to give people what they want. Obviously they've got to make money, and they're doing okay at that. But if people aren't happy with the results that Google are giving, then there are plenty of other search engines around there. There's Yahoo and there's Bing, but in the main they give fairly poor results, and they're trying to emulate what Google do, and that's why we see Microsoft have pumped hundreds of millions of pounds in to try and promote Bing, but it's just not working for them because it doesn't give people what they want, and they struggle with it. Google's dead simple. It's a white screen with a little flashing cursor. People type stuff in the box and press the button, and it works. Whereas even now Bing overcomplicated with a massive image over it. Yahoo is very popular in America. It's very, very busy. It's more of a portal. But it's simple and it works. So I think if we were to start to say to Google that you've got to change your search results based on what an external body thinks should be there, then that's very, very dodgy ground. Very, very dodgy ground. And my view is still, you don't have to use Google if you're not happy with the way it works. Use one of the other providers, because there are plenty out there. But when you've got a device, so Android device or Google Glass or whatever, it's going to have Android on. It's going to have Google's operating system in, and Google are going to know that, and their search engine will be built into that. But they still give you the choice to select a different search engine.
I mean, it's not just Google. I think even I've got an iPhone. There are certain things. If I go into my calendar and click an address, it defaults to, I think it's a Google Map device that I know sucks the battery a lot more than a different sat nav thing that I've got on the phone. I have no way of telling it to use the other sat nav sort of app by preference.
And Android you do.
Oh yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, there you go. Get rid of the Apple.
Do you know what I mean? I'm not just saying about Google, but it's that ability for the user to have control and not to actually say I want control, as opposed to Google tracks what most people want and then gives you control. And it decides for you as opposed based on watching your behaviour, as opposed to saying these are the options. Which ones you want, and once you've chosen it once, it just default gives you what it thinks you're going to want.
That's
so
it.
But I can also see other stuff coming in.
And that's, as I say, with the Google Plus side of things now, it makes it easy for you to say, I prefer that sort of thing, I prefer that. And we've seen even me now. I've just shared a couple of photos from Google Glass on Facebook. I went onto Facebook on my phone, and it showed me a post that was made 8 hours ago. And then I had to force it until it actually came up, and that's probably going to push a lot of people away, because there's no option. There used to be an option that said most recent or top stories on the app. It isn't there now on Facebook, and that's annoying. Some people. It's there on a web-based tool. Some people don't like the chat facility.
Rob, can I just just before we close down the online broadcast, folks, I've just got a question from Joe Downey. Has Rob seen an increase in people taking up YouTube advertising? And I know this has been the subject of past meetups as well. Yeah, certainly.
We're still seeing that advertising on YouTube is dirt cheap. We were working with a very nice hotel in Marrakesh last week, and they got video, and we just wanted to get it going a little bit, so we uploaded video to YouTube. We set it to 1p a view, and they spent their entire £10 budget or €10 budget within a few hours. There's a massive audience on YouTube. But still, the biggest problem is the production of the video content. That is the big problem. People aren't invested in what can be a few £1,000s or more in some cases to actually get a good video advertisement put together. Once they've got that, it's very cheap to distribute. It's easy to get out to hundreds of thousands of people for next to no money. But still, we're still seeing it now. I would say even now we're doing we're doing no more video advertising because customers just don't have the content. They don't have the video content. So it's a very cheap way of advertising, but people aren't paying for the production companies to make the videos.
Okay, and then just one comment from Tom, who's just leaving us, I think, but he's just commented saying, I'm currently preventing my children from using my Chromecast as it's causing buffering of Rob's talk. So he's using it.
Yeah, exactly. Unfortunately, I don't think Tom has super fast broadband.
Given the time, can I suggest that we just say goodbye to the folks online, and then Rob can take any more questions and we can carry on the discussion here in the room.
Yes,
that's all right?
Yeah,
okay.
No problem.
Great.
Come back to the mobile phone issue. One of the issues I have is related to the point that was made, there's all the bloatware you have on these.
Yeah.
Nice phone. 90% of these apps I don't want, I can't get rid of them. Have you got the same issue on the Nexus 5 or any other models?
No, we just take off the apps that you don't want. Very, very easy. Just hold down, see a little thing that says remove them, or you can uninstall the apps if you like.
There are some you can't uninstall though.
There are some system apps that you can't get rid of, but you can move them out of the way.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you just go for just a Google product, it just ships with Android as it is, without any of that crap on top. But I think a lot of the other manufacturers are starting to do that, just shipping. No, I think Sony and Samsung are going to continue to load all that kind of stuff on top. I've got a random, might be a random question. I was doing some research today. I came across the Google Prediction API.
The Google
Prediction API.
Prediction API, yeah.
I was wondering if you've got much experience with that. I was just kind of picking up on some of the things it offers. Obviously, it ties into the whole big data thing that Google now offer.
Yeah.
But just kind of reading through some of it, it can tie in with sort of bringing up like upsell, cross-sell product recommendations. It's got a recommendation system within it. I was just wondering whether you've actually
we've not actually looked at it in detail. The one thing that we have been looking at is the real-time API, the analytics real-time API. So that's giving us live data of what's going on. So when you talk about if people are starting to see a pattern that's going on within a website at that point in time, we also know the audience detail of that user as well, and then we can serve up different content or provide tags so people can provide content. The predictive side of things and predictive intent is tied into that, but it's not something we've looked at in detail yet. So,
but in theory, if say you were to hook into their API, this is for like an e-commerce solution. If you've got that universal analytics running, so you know what the weather is, you know who the customer is, you've got all this information about them, you can then tie into the prediction side of stuff. As long as you're feeding your product data to it, you could automatically populate certain blocks on the website with relevant products based on who the customer is, what the weather is, etc., etc.
And we are
could replace predictive intent and all the other systems you have to pay a couple of grand a month for.
Yeah, I mean the real-time API is still in beta at the moment, a very, very limited beta, but we're looking particularly with tourism where you might have a hotel that is couple-friendly, family-friendly and dog-friendly, and when people come to the site, if we know that they're a more mature couple with a dog, then we can show them content that we know who they are. We've been talking about that, and we're actually running some of those in a very isolated environment at the moment. It won't be long before we go live with those. But then to bring in the predictive side of things that actually shows us, right, this is what we know about the customer. What do you think we should serve? It brings in another layer beyond the audience. It actually brings in what Google thinks they should be interested in, they're more likely to be interested in. And the very early days of that was when we started recording age, gender, the demographic data, the interest category, that sort of stuff. Was very, very interesting. The hotel we were at last week, we were looking through the categories, and without a doubt, the most popular vehicle category for people that were booking online in the hotel were people who drove BMWs. So what that actually tells us is we can target those people that are interested in BMW. We know the age range. We know that there was I think it was two-thirds female, two-thirds male. There's about 60-40 male-female who are booking, so we can target one gender more, and we can actually start change images based on that as well. But when we're doing the advertising on the display network and remarketing, we can look at that and really narrow it down, and the prediction stuff will bring some extra tools. I think before people really adopt that, they need to actually get onto the basics, which are just serving people appropriate content for the audience.
Okay. So it's something that could, I mean, just from our side of things, it could be something that's worth investing some time in,
Mm-hmm.
having a module that can pulls in all the data anyway, so the universal analytics, that side of things, but then also start looking to hook in with the prediction side, and that can start automating recommendations. And
Exactly.
an alternative option to your Pirius and Locator and those kind of intelligent-based systems.
That's it.
Okay.
And then when you look at,
and it's free, they're not intending to license that, or
not that I'm aware of at the moment. With analytics, there are two versions of analytics: the standard and the premium. Premium's about $15,000 a year, and it's got some other features. Real-time API is not part of that either. It's available. It will be available to the public. The details of that API, because it's very much in its infancy, I couldn't comment just yet.
Okay.
Rob, did you get that information about BMWs through this real-time API?
No, not through the real-time API. That was just through the demographic data. In the you have affinity category, categories and other categories within the demographic reporting, and within that there's a vehicle category, and basically what it's telling you, it doesn't necessarily tell you that people drive BMWs, it tells you that people are interested in BMWs, so based on the sites that they look at and the things that they search for, but there weren't many Ford drivers in that list on that particular occasion. No Skodas either.
From AdWords into analytics, basically, so it's an analytics report.
It was an analytics report, and it got nothing to do with AdWords. So any visit of the website, wherever they come from, it records that data for us, and it shows you what percentage of people it can get that data from. So if 100% of people who visit the site, you might get that data for 30 or 40% of the people. Because Google still don't allow us to record data for people below the age of 18, a lot of the unknown genders and unknown age and that are people under the age of 18, so it can't record that. But then in display advertising, we can then positively target and also exclude by category, by interest, by audience, age, gender, and that makes spend. One of the things I forgot to mention on search is search has got a lot more competitive. A lot of people have been telling us they're paying more per click for search, but display has gone the other way because we've managed to narrow it down and down and down and down and down. The audience on display is you might be paying more per click, but the conversion rate is so much better when you just really narrowly target those audience, and the location targeting as well has got much better.
So on the display end, the traditional view of display as in brand is changing to lead generation.
It has changed now, so if we looked at display advertising just over 2 years ago, before the major change happened to the Google Display Network and the targeting, it was very much seen as a brand awareness, just getting your name out there. But now it's almost the fact that you can do direct sales. Most people start with remarketing, then dynamic remarketing, and then start looking at display advertising. It still plays a part much earlier on in the funnel, in most cases, apart from remarketing, of course, where it's at the other side. But it's so much more cost effective now. We 4 years ago we didn't recommend to our average client that they would use display advertising. Now it's something that we encourage everybody to at least look at with display with display remarketing first of all. But also search remarketing has proved very popular and is helping conversion rates. Any more questions, or should we go to the bar?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thanks very much. Thanks, Emily.
Just there's a pot at the back in the champagne jug. Any contributions towards the room hire tonight would be gratefully received. Thank you, guys.